Okay, hi, this is Bernie. Today I am going to talk about Seinfeld, the sitcom. Pardon me, I am having a yawning fit, so if I start yawning, okay. I want to talk about the three different eras, if you will, of Seinfeld. There were three distinctive eras. Most people don't understand this. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's true. Let me show you what I mean. The first era of Seinfeld was what I call the beginning. And that was, what was that, July of, I believe, 89? Yeah, right? July of 89 to maybe right around June-ish or May-ish of 92 in that area. And what was going on with that, if you'll pardon me for a second, all right, so let's get back into it. Oh, that's good. Anyhow, the first part of Seinfeld in those beginning years, let's look at George Costanza, okay? George Costanza, if you recall, and if you don't believe me, go back and look. George Costanza was a normal guy. He was almost a likable guy in the beginning. In the beginning, George Costanza was quiet. He was shy. He wanted to date a girl, but he didn't have courage. He had a job. Can you believe it? He was a real estate salesperson, right? And also, as he said, Jason Alexander in real life, he said he was shamelessly copying Woody Allen. So he had, he was very quiet, very shy, sort of normal, real estate agent. And that's how the first early years of George Costanza was. Okay? Michael Richard Kramer, on the early years, okay, he said almost nothing. That was his shtick. That was his thing. He made little noises, and his main thing that he liked to say was, "Oh, I like that." People would like say, "Oh, listen, I'm getting rid of this sweater. Do you want it?" Oh yeah, giddy up. He wouldn't say much, you see, so that's basically the early Kramer. The first time Kramer ever appeared on Seinfeld, believe it or not, he knocked. Interesting, right? He knocked. He didn't fly in. That's number one. Number two, Jerry Seinfeld was laying on his couch, and Kramer comes in after knocking, and he's in like a bathrobe, and he's walking around sort of nervously and looking, and he's finally Jerry says, "What?" And he takes out of both pockets of the robe 2 pieces of bread, and he says, "Do you have any meat?" And that was his introduction. So the early Kramer was, "Oh yeah, oh, I like that." And that was basically it. Elaine, I don't think she was in the first 2 episodes, possibly. But Elaine and Jerry basically stayed the same throughout all of Seinfeld. There weren't big differences with Elaine and Jerry. They acted the same, they did the same stuff, and so from the very beginning to the very last episode, you can't really point and say, "Oh my God, what a difference in Elaine's character and Jerry's character." Nope, it was basically the same. But George and Kramer changed dramatically. And next up, I'm going to talk about the second coming of them, if you will. Okay, so what happened was when the writers were doing George and Kramer, in the beginning they were sort of feeling in the dark, if you will. They didn't really know what the hell was up, what was down. They were experimenting and testing. But then,
You got mail.
but then after a few years, right around, I would say 92 to maybe 94-ish, the writers, this is what their legs, they were doing this, and all of a sudden they caught ground. And all of a sudden, they got it. They knew what the hell they were doing. They knew how to write for them, and they knew how to make them. And so they changed for the better. So what happened is with George Costanza, he became louder. He became a little more obnoxious. He became very selfish. He no longer had a job. He couldn't keep a job. And he was someone that you really didn't want to deal with unless you were Jerry. And so if you were Jerry, yeah, that's my friend. But George became this obnoxious, selfish bastard who was funny as all hell. And so that was the second George, the best one. And then Kramer, they changed him because he started talking, okay? It wasn't just movements or whatever. No. He started talking. His script was damn good, what they wrote for him. He barged in, and he was like, wow, funny stuff. And so now the Seinfelds moved along. If you're looking at the early episodes of Seinfeld, they were very slow moving. Jerry would say something to George. I don't know about this haircut. What do you mean you don't know about this haircut? I don't know. It's just a haircut. No, it's a nice haircut. It was slow. But in the second Seinfelds, it started moving. You had the stories were simmering up. They were simmering up. They were getting, and each scene and each moment it was getting more, oh God, what's going to happen next? And Jerry Seinfeld said in an interview his favorite comedians were Abbott and Costello, if I'm not mistaken, because of the situations. You'll recall on one of the Seinfelds, someone didn't want something, so they threw it out the window. It hit a guy in a limousine. He happened to pick it up, and he gave it to her, which got her fired. And so Seinfeld liked those things, chain reactions, where the dominoes fall, where, oh shit, this guy did that, but that actually hit him, but he didn't realize he was coming for dinner, and that's why that guy, and so that. Now, the Larry David influence, and I'm skipping around here and going each way, but it's coming into my mind, and so I'm firing it off as soon as it comes in. Larry David's whole take on sitcoms was he got revolted when at the end of a sitcom there was a lesson to be learned and everyone hugged. His motto was no hugs, no learning. And so, you know, a lot of the ends of the Seinfeld episodes were terrible. They ended really poorly because Larry David is this Jew who's always down on himself and on life, and so his theory is, no, nothing's ever good. No, it's not going to have a good ending. And so that's how we ended the Seinfelds. You'll recall when George Costanza became a hand model, at the end he went into the hot iron, and so a lot of the episodes end like that because no hugging, no learning. But that's sort of off track of where I'm going in the original place. Now, the third George Costanza, which would be probably around 1995 to 1998, sucked. In fact, it sucked so much that the real Jason Alexander, after the show was completely off the air, he said in an interview, I hated the last George, what they made me. It's true. What they did is they took George and they times him again. What do I mean by that? You have the first George, which was quiet, sort of shy. I'd like to talk to her, but I'm really not sure. Then you had the second George, which was the George Costanza we all know and love. You know, the obnoxious prick, fantastic. But then, for the last few years, they decided, let's make him more obnoxious. Let's make him more loud. And he became a shithead. So he went from a funny prick to a shithead. And I'm observant enough because I'm a New York Jew and I know my comedy. But if you watch the last 3 years, George Costanza, I'll give you an example. One of the episodes towards the end is where Jerry wanted to buy a new car and he goes to a dealership, and before he even goes there, Costanza in the script, and he's saying, they're going to screw you, they're going to get you, you better watch it, you better, and he was like over the top. And so they made him over the top, obnoxious, and like loud, and he wasn't funny anymore. Kramer, the third Kramer, they did the exact same thing, except instead of making him louder, they made him more zany. It was a shitty Kramer. So you had the first Kramer who didn't speak, basically, and he just made motions and did funny shtick physically. The second Kramer who spoke and did funny shtick, who was amazing. And then the third Kramer who wasn't funny anymore, they made him like, oh, look at me, I'm a real asshole. I'll give you a perfect example, the one where Kramer decides to make a screen door for his apartment, okay? And Jerry says, what are you doing? Oh, I'm making a screen door for my apartment. It was over the top. It wasn't funny. He started to make spaghetti or some crap. There was a lot of stuff where you said, this is not the Kramer I know and love. It's not the subtle Kramer. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm Kramer and I'm crazy. So those are the 3 different eras of Seinfeld. Next time you watch it, look at it and press info on your remote and look at the year and you'll say, holy shit, he's right. And one last thought I guess I want to leave you with is about 50% of Seinfelds were not funny at all, and 50% of Seinfelds were pee in your pants amazing. And I guess I'll give you some examples. The ones that were not funny at all is towards the end when Elaine moves into a closet to order Chinese food. Not funny. One where Jerry gets a curse on him and so he has to run in the forest or he turns into a werewolf. Stupid. Okay? Not funny. But the ones that are pee in your pants funny is my favorite episode is the one where Jerry gets out from the diner where he gets up and he shakes his leg and this little nebbish guy comes along and he says, hi Jerry, how are you? Oh, I'm alright. What are you doing? Oh, my stupid leg fell asleep. You're lucky. At least you have something to do. That was the opening exchange, and from that moment on, the show was amazing. I mean, that's great writing right there. You're lucky, at least you have something to do. The freaking guy his leg fell asleep. So, that's what I wanted to say. Not all Seinfelds are funny. There are 3 different eras that you should check out, and hope you enjoyed this.